What up, y'all? This is Patrick Hayes, and today I want to talk about black magic. I want to talk about black magic, I want to talk about white magic, I want to talk about gray magic, and I want to talk about yellow magic. And what I want to do is I basically want to give a brief overview or understanding of what magic is, what these different kinds of magic are, and the different potentials there are for these magics, meaning where these different magics lead. What potentials, what opportunities, what results will come from practicing these different forms of magic. So to get started, what I want to start with is, what is magic? What is magic, not in the stage magic sense, but what is magic in the true sense of spiritual magic? Well, magic is the manipulation of the unseen forces of nature. That's the simple definition for what magic is. Manipulation of the unseen forces of nature. Now, black magic is the manipulation of the unseen forces of nature in order to conform with your lower desire will, or in order to cause destruction, or in order to self-aggrandize yourself. It's basically the manipulation of unseen forces of nature for your own lower desires. While white magic, conversely, is a manipulation of the unseen forces of nature to align with divine will, to be a greater expression of divinity. The white magician works to prove their nobility or to prove their purity to the powers that be, so that it can be entrusted with divine spiritual powers, or the wand of Magus, or the great arcana, as they call it. Essentially spiritual powers. And there are the divine powers that exist, and by proving your purity, by proving your nobility to these divine powers, then you will be entrusted with them. And their motto is, what is right is what's powerful. What is right is what's strong, right? Doing the right thing is where your power comes from. Now, conversely, black magicians, their motto is more like, power is what's right. Power is the ultimate of all things, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're doing right or wrong. Power ultimately dominates. And a black magician seeks to obtain their power by force, as opposed to by showing purity. So it seeks to seek out these powers and steal them, get their hands on it and use it for their own selfish means. So something to remember here, there are no evil forces of nature, only divine forces of nature. What makes something, say, evil is how it's used. So a dark magician can take a divine force and place it somewhere that it's not supposed to be placed, or use it in a way that's not supposed to be used. And this is how we would define evil. But actually, the source of creation didn't create any evil forces. So it's like the misuse of it. Now, I've talked about this before. Another way of looking at it is, balance is what's right. And going too far to any polarity is, you could say, what's wrong or evil, right? So you could say that, like, being a guardian is in balance, and so that's like right use of power. But the same power that it takes for somebody to be a guardian, if misused, they can be a bully. So that gives a basic overview over black and white magic. So next I want to talk about briefly gray magic. So gray magic is the unconscious or subconscious perversion of power. So this is when somebody's performing black magic, but they don't even actually know that they're performing it. It's something that is going on beneath the radar. This is like a shadow, right? So we've all experienced this, where we've done things that we come to realize, wow, I was doing that for the wrong reason, right? So this is the shadow, and this is actually a form of gray magic, which is really a form of dark magic, but it's like unconscious dark magic. Okay, now yellow magic, this is the failure to learn how to prevent the perversion of power. So this is an experience where many of us have probably had this before too, where we knew maybe we weren't doing the right thing, but we felt compelled and we couldn't stop ourselves from doing it. So yellow magic is, in a sense, more conscious than gray magic, but it is where somebody has lost control of themselves. Okay, so now I want to talk about where these lead. Now, black magic basically encompasses gray magic and yellow magic. Those are just different forms of black magic that maybe have more promise. Black magic is where somebody consciously decides to go down that path. Like, I'm actually intending to be a dark magician. I am intending to use the unseen forces of nature for my own selfish self-aggrandizement or destruction or whatever. While with yellow and gray, it's not necessarily conscious or intentional, but it is still a form of black magic. So now I want to talk about where these different forms of magic lead. Like, how does this play out? And so I'm going to speak of it in black magic and white magic. Now, a white magician, if they stay steadfast on their path, will eventually become an embodiment of divinity, an embodiment of divine virtue, a self-realized expression of the oneness, a divinely realized expression of the oneness that is expressed in individual form. And then, due to the fact that it is harmonized with the eternal forces of divinity, it can continue to live as a divine expression of divinity forever. It becomes eternal. It is a node of the all that became conscious and reflected the divine oneness so well that it becomes eternal, just like the forces of that oneness, and enters the kingdom of God, or whatever you want to say. So it's able to ascend to the higher dimensions of the spiritual realm. Now, a black magician, on the other hand, a black magician can never ascend beyond the astral realm. It primarily gets stuck in the lower astral realm, right? So the highest that a dark magician can go is 5th dimension, 5D, which is conscious in the astral realm. And you can see different like dark overlords in the astral realm will dominate over the lower astral realm as a kind of king in the astral realm. And this is maybe like, say, the pinnacle of what you could become as a dark magician. And the reason for this is because in the astral realm is where all of our desire bodies are. So the kind of desire bodies that keep you bound to the lower realm. So desire for power, desire for sex, desire for gluttony, money, whatever, those kinds of things. These things, when you are using higher spiritual powers to feed these impulses, to feed these desires become interwoven with your spirit. So your spirit gets locked and stuck to these desires, and it can't break itself free to ascend to the higher dimension. So you become bound to the lower astral realm, and you actually become a slave to these desires. So the best you can hope for as a dark magician is become some sort of overlord in the lower astral realm that basically just feeds off of other beings. It figures out some sort of looshing program and can feed off of other beings in the astral realm and in the physical realm. And in fact, this is what demons are. So eventually you would become a demon. So after you die, if you have not positioned yourself to be able to cleanse yourself of these lower carnal desires, then instead of being able to ascend to a higher spiritual realm, then you become bound to the earth plane. And you see this a lot with wandering spirits that have unfinished business. Now, sometimes people have unfinished business and then they clear it up and then they're able to move on. This is a lot of what Dan Winter's work talks about as far as being able to have enough charge in your aura, have enough bliss in your aura to make it out, to have the escape velocity to make it to the higher spiritual realm. If you don't have that, because you're bound by different addictions to carnal desires like sex or alcohol or different things like that, you become a wandering spirit that wanders and feeds off of other astral entities or feeds off of humans that are in a body in order to perpetuate your existence. Otherwise, your consciousness will corrode and you'll be lost. So you have to become some sort of like vampire. And this is how demons are created. A dark magician is a corrosive energy. It only knows how to corrode and only knows how to feed off of other things. Whereas the other direction, you become like a free energy device. You become the source of life, the source of all existence in itself. So therefore you become self-sustaining and you start giving life. You can give life to other things. You can give birth to new creations. When if you're on the dark magician path, you're corrosive, you're sucking, you're vampiric. Now, eventually, that form of consciousness will go back into, say, like the compost heap of souls. So it won't be an eternal expression. It will be something that eventually will need to be wiped. But it serves a purpose while it's here, because what it does is it helps other beings that are on the light path to learn discernment, to learn how to be truly empowered because in order to be truly empowered, you need to be able to resist those demons or live above them, right? So there's a purpose for that expression, but in the end, that expression goes back into like the purifier and it moves into oblivion and becomes wiped, because it's not an expression of the divine eternal nature of, say, creator energy. So therefore it can't be eternal. So I hope that brings some clarity to the dark path and light path. And I'm excited to keep moving forward on these kinds of topics and keep building on this information. So if you have any questions or comments, you want me to cover some different angles of this, go ahead and put that in the comments below. If you felt like this was useful, you feel like there's anybody else that you know that you feel like this would be useful for them to watch, please share that with them. I'd really appreciate that. So thanks so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes. Like and subscribe. If you haven't hit the bell button, make sure you hit the bell button, and then you'll be notified every time I release a video. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.